Hello, welcome to Lazada Insider, featuring knowledge that makes a difference. We share trusted insights, forward looking perspectives, and exclusive expert interviews to keep you ahead of the curve.
Hi everyone. Sustainability is a topic that has garnered a lot of attention in recent years, and for good reasons. It is an important issue that affects all of us, from the environment to the well-being of our communities and economies. However, comprehending the concept of sustainability can be challenging and complicated for some of the individuals and businesses. Join us for an exclusive interviews with our expert guest, Paul Blackler, Impact Innovations and Agility Coach from PaloIT, as he sheds some light on commonly confusing buzzwords or terms and debunk some of the prevalent myths in sustainability. Paul has been coaching and consulting transformations for 18 years across United Kingdom, EMEA, and APAC with a passion for helping individuals, teams, and organizations to achieve its potential and find its purpose. Having spent a decade coaching community and international development projects in West Africa, Paul is also recognized by Scotland's First Minister's Top 20 Entrepreneurs 2018 through the Unlocking Ambitions program, focused on business as a force for good. Now driving PaloIT sustainability transformation model, helping clients and community to maximize their economics, social, and environmental impact. Thanks for joining me today, Paul.
Thank you very much. Yeah, really happy to be here and to celebrate Earth Day with you.
First of all, I know I shared a bit of your background and your impressive profile just now, but it would be really good if you can have a quick introductions about yourself.
Yep. So I work for PaloIT. We are a global innovation and transformation consultancy. The IT is really focused around innovation and transformation. So whilst we are a tech organization, we are just as much around helping clients to problem solve, to innovate and transform their businesses. And for me personally, that's playing a key part in sustainability transformation, helping clients to evolve and transition their business models, their practices, their capabilities and mindsets towards the sustainability agenda.
Cool. As I mentioned just now, there are many different terms or buzzwords used for sustainability. So to help us to understand some of these concepts better, maybe I would like to hear some of your explanations or your point of views in a rapid fire style. Is that okay?
Yep, let's go for it.
First, CSR.
CSR, corporate social responsibility. I think it's interesting that as humans, we've kind of grappled with the question, what role does businesses play in society in terms of what responsibility do they have in society? Almost throughout history, it probably can date back to, us organizing, coming out of kind of hunter-gatherer periods into organizing around resources and building resilience and community. And so this question has persisted for a very long time. It's something that we've grappled with. There was a big movement in the early 1900s around philanthropy. So this was more around now a business or an organization is profitable, we can give some of that money back and kind of give back to community. And then that started to be formalized a little bit more in the 1940s, 1950s, but it was a little bit more around, giving money back or giving some capacity or time to a purposeful cause. It wasn't structured in many ways. It was down to self-regulation, down to your own self-values of the organization. So there were some challenges with that movement, but it was very much driven by principles and values.
How about ESG?
ESG, so stands for environmental, social, and governance. And it's not actually very well known that ESG was coined in 2004, actually from the investment and risk management industry. So this history is really important because the word is used very interchangeably with sustainability, but it actually came from the premise of minimizing a company's exposure to risk. So whilst there were intentions behind it to kind of redirect capital, financial investments for social purpose, recognizing actually that a lot of investors, although looking for a return on that financial investment, also have social ethics and values in mind. But what it morphed into really was a framework and a measurement practice for assessing a company's risk management profile. But for smaller businesses, it's really pertinent to recognize that this is an increasing trend in terms of reporting and being able to measure positive and negative impact, and it's something that's going to spread increasingly into all organizations of all sizes.
Sustainability.
Okay, so now we get onto the broader concept, I suppose, and a way that I've come to kind of learn and communicate the subject is, if we look at the term quite broadly, sustainability means to preserve the viability of a system over time. And then, of course, we have very different system levels. We have individual system, we have interrelationships, you can scale upwards and upwards and upwards to teams, to society, organizations, to the planet. And actually, sustainability of all those systems are really important. So sustainability of self, sustainability of our interrelationships, sustainability of our organization, up to planetary. The challenge possibly has been that we've had an over focus on sustainability of the business, and that's kind of been precedent. So even at the compromise of sustainability itself, at times we see well-being challenges, mental health, anxiety, burnout, withdrawal from purpose within the organization. We also see business sustainability around profit put ahead of sustainability of the planet and environmental and social problems that leads to. So the sustainability movement is therefore looking at the broader sustainability of the planet, and this really is a transformation of business models, not just looking at the economic sustainability of profit, but also sustainability of people and planet. So it's led to this concept of the triple bottom line, not just looking at profitable bottom line, but also people, planet, and profit, or economic, social, and environmental. So sustainability in some ways is all about balance, and not just putting the focus on profitability ahead of some of those other costs and consequences to society.
Cool. How about regenerative?
Regenerative. So another way you could it's very closely linked to sustainability, but another way you could look at sustainability is to almost envisage it like in an economic term, like a bank balance would have some capital or some cash within your bank balance. And actually, you may have interest that's generated from that balance. You might also have capital that's replenished within your balance. That might be from revenue, from activity. But if your capital, you continue to eat into your capital and it depletes and it depletes and it depletes, you can say that your current activity is unsustainable. That cannot go on forever. You would deplete your financial capital. So sustainability really is around recognizing that the earth also has capital, whether that's the capital of forestry, the capital of fresh water, the capital of the fish in our oceans, all of these things that sustain our lives. You could also maybe say capital of human well-being, or the will of our workforce, And if we keep eating into a lot of these resources, it is unsustainable. From a physical, biological perspective, from a mental well-being perspective. And so regenerative is also around getting back to a healthy state of that bank balance, but also trying to live off the interest. So it's a close link to nature, to say actually nature naturally replenishes a lot of these resources, and we want to get back to better balance. So while sustainability sometimes has a greater focus on doing less bad, regenerative is actually about doing more good.
How about circularity?
We would say that traditionally our business and economic models have been very linear. So it's the take, make, waste model. We take from the planet, we make into products and services. Some of those many of those now have short life. There's planned obsolescence built into these, by design to only last for short periods. Circularity is really around closing that loop and keeping materials and energy within the system for longer. So it's shifting from take, make, waste to potentially even refusing. Do we need to produce this thing? Can we reduce the materialism within the items that we're producing, or reduce the amount of things we are consuming? Can we reuse the items? Can we keep them in circularity? For business models, that might be second-hand markets. It might be designing products which can actually last longer. And then, of course, but the final answer really to that is recycling. So not jumping to recycling too soon. We want to try and keep those items in circulation for as long as possible. But then also designing and building products which are more recyclable, and supporting the closed loop system at the end of the life of the product, so that it can be recycled back into products and back into the economy.
Last but not least, SDGs.
SDGs, so these are the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So these were formed in 2015. There was actually a set of preceding goals, the Millennial Development Goals, that led up to these. So again, a long history of the organizations like the United Nations and pushing this agenda and developing and maturing over time. The 2015 Sustainable Development Goals recognize 17 global goals around sustainability. So from no poverty to eliminating health challenges, to improving our governance and security and resilience, and minimizing corruption. So yeah, really powerful framework to look at for all organizations to maybe do a little bit of assessment around which goals we could potentially be contributing to. And yeah, have been quite instrumental in aligning a lot of business activity towards the sustainability agenda.
Thanks for your explanations. As we mentioned just now, the topic of sustainability is becoming more and more trending and popular. So we also come with a lot of misconceptions and confusions. So it's lucky to have you today to help me to clear some of my doubts. I have around 6 common misconceptions or confusions. So could you let me know whether they are myth or facts? Cool. First, SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, are not relevant to SMEs.
Okay, not relevant. So I would say that is a myth. It's a myth, however. So sustainable development goals, because they are attacking global goals, really requires the effort from everybody at all levels, all organizations of all sizes. Individuals play their part, governments, regulatory bodies. And so, yeah, there are 17 goals that you can look at. You can help challenge your thinking. Organizations have helped, even small organizations, to reinvent their purpose, their values, their principles, ask questions of their supply chain. Which goals are we aligning to? The however part comes in is that they also include a number of indicators that sit below them, and then they become quite specific to global challenges. For example, in the health space, the sub-indicators are around reducing child mortality, or reducing traffic accidents, eliminating, AIDS and tuberculosis, for example. So not all businesses will necessarily be able to direct specifically into some of those indicators, but they also offer space and food for thought. So we've seen a lot of small retail businesses that have used those to say, well, actually, can I look at my product portfolio and maybe start to pilot a certain segment? For example, traffic incidents. Can I introduce some products that are reducing traffic, and actually then start to build a proposition around this? I start to communicate actually the vision and the value that I'm coming from is to help improve this target. I attract a different niche consumer that also buys into those values, and over time, actually, your entire business model can transition, and you can communicate and build and design with purpose in mind.
And that links to my second questions. Only large corporations can make a significant impact on sustainability.
Yeah, I think it comes back to we all play our role, and as consumers, we play a role to ask our businesses, these difficult questions. What are our products made from? Where are they coming from? What's the values behind the business? So, and that puts a little bit of pressure on us as business, healthy pressure to actually keep pushing in this direction. I think it's true that some industries, some organizations of different sizes have a different net negative impact. For example, if you have more material impact, if you're producing more CO2 at the point of production. But one interesting trend is organizations are now being held more and more accountable for their scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 carbon emissions. And this actually now forces us to look at our entire supply chain and not just responsible for our day-to-day activity, but also where our products are coming from our purchasing, from our supply, and then upstream to consumers as well. So and we're seeing increasing pressure, regulatory pressure, tax pressure. The CO2 tax in Singapore, for example, is going up from $5 a ton to $25 a ton over the next couple of years, and then it's scaled up to $40 a ton, and then between 50 and 80 up to 2027. So yeah, this is something for all businesses to take note of, all businesses of all sizes.
Cool. I think you have answered my next questions, but I will let you to reinforce your answer again. Certain industries may have a greater obligations to uphold sustainability than others.
Yes, of course, depending on that sort of the material impact. But again, this is where it's becoming more and more pertinent to understand your entire supply chain. Ask those questions, have the conversation with your suppliers around the type of products, and potentially actually some of the products are built with sustainability in mind or have some sustainability features and functionality. So that can be a positive to understand that, disclose that with your customers. So having the conversation, with suppliers, being transparent and communicating with your customers and your consumers, and actually embracing a bit of vulnerability, to not necessarily having all the answers, but learning with your customer. So I think regardless of the industry, that pressure is there, and consumers more and more are looking for organizations to have answers to some of these questions.
Cool. And the key reasons for companies to manage sustainability is to mitigate risk. Is it a myth or facts?
Oh, that's a tricky one. So I guess historically, and depending on the organization, they can have different approaches to that. In the early stages, actually, a lot of organizations may have initially been driven by risk management. So that could have been pressure from compliance, from regulation, from disclosures, from reporting, could be consumer pressure. So mitigating some of those reputational risks, mitigating the risk of fines or tax. And so maybe driven by that, but more and more organizations are understanding actually that there's a value and a principle driven approach to this in terms of doing the right thing for society, and understanding actually some of these critical drivers around our environment that's needing us to change. So, but there's also, as climate change and societal change is a big disruption to a lot of business as well. So there is also that a kind of closed loop system to say, if we improve our sustainability, we mitigate some of the external risks like climate change and the increasing frequency and impact of climate changes. It's going to come back to affect us as businesses. That could be disruption in the supply chain. It could be changes, the regulation, the competition, creates a lot of instability and uncertainty. So there is mitigating the risk on us as a company, but there's also the company mitigating the risks out to the environment, and then that becomes circular.
Cool. And sustainable practices can be cost effective and may not adversely affect profits.
I think this is true. We see more and more evidence actually of the economic benefits of sustainability. It can drive efficiencies, reducing waste in the supply chain. It can help you to kind of strip out costs. It can also, in terms of the profitability, lead to new revenue streams. It can lead to new markets. It can lead to creating new value for your customer, and often customers are willing to pay more for sustainability. And so, the profitability angle there, but it's also about resilience of the organization, and to be future-proof, because there is so much change that is happening, and there's so much change that's coming. This is a huge trajectory with sustainability, that if we do not start to adapt our business model and plan and think and communicate with our stakeholders around this, we will not be resilient for the changes that are coming.
Last but not least, talking about the customer value. Sustainable products and services are more sought after in developed countries, but there is no as much as demand for them in many parts of Southeast Asia.
Okay, so I think there is often a slight disparity between regions. It's often said that some trends, are driven by areas around the world like Europe or the US, but this kind of Southeast Asia is, kind of rapidly catching up. Southeast Asia represents around 16% of global coastline, so that kind of direct link to the climate change risk and the displacement of people from rising sea levels is one of the kind of drivers. We also see a few other trends. So it's around 640 million consumers within this region. So again, consumer pressure is changing, perhaps driven by some of the trends in Europe, but it's increasing here. All 10 countries within this region signed up to the Paris Agreement, so committing to the 1.5 degrees temperature increases, and I think around 23% primary energy from renewable sources. So, and then I mentioned, of course, taxes going up. So all of those pressures are on our doorstep. Regulatory, consumer, stakeholder, supplier pressures, whether it's even if you're a small business, but you're purchasing from a larger business, they're also having to reduce their carbon and report. So yeah, it's very, very pertinent for Southeast Asian countries, albeit catching up with other countries around the world.
Thanks for clearing my doubts, and maybe we can shift a bit of our gear toward a bit of more of your company experience. I understand PaloIT is an active player in the sustainability space. So can you share a bit more about your own company journey towards sustainability?
Sure. So PaloIT was actually formed off the back, in many ways, of the agility movement and the human-centric values around agility and finding better ways to deliver value to customers. And around 6 years ago, the company had a fairly radical update of its mission and business purpose around the premise of embracing technology as a force for good and making that central to our operating model and business model. And one of the things the organization did quite early on was to explore how can we hold ourselves accountable, looking out across the industry, what frameworks or methods or best practice exists. And we actually went on a journey to become Singapore's first B Corp certified tech company, one of the first B Corp organizations in Singapore. It's a much larger movement within the US and Europe, but this is for typically SMEs, small, medium-sized enterprises, but also a number of large businesses have used the methodology in practice as well. And it's an assessment as well that guides you through a number of pillars and a number of assessment criteria against different dimensions of sustainability. So updating your mission, your business statement, your business model, your practices, your policies, your employee engagement, and a number of these elements. And so that was really impactful for us as an organization because it gave us a starting place. It enabled us to connect into an ecosystem of other like-minded organizations to share and learn from. And off the back of that, we then were able to create our own impact roadmap around how we were going to drive sustainability in our organization and out with the community, our clients and ecosystem. We started measuring and reducing our own carbon, and that's an ongoing journey, as for many organizations. We started training and bringing in certain training and workshops for our employees, and every employee that joins PaloIT now goes through sustainability elements and some gamified workshops around climate change. And then we started delivering those out to community. So we deliver those in part free for the public, and we deliver them commercially with our clients as well as part of broader transformations. And being an organization that's focused around innovation and transformation, increasingly we apply that with the sustainability lens. So helping organizations transition with their sustainability transformation.
Good to hear that. Now I'm curious to understand what are some of the learnings you actually can share with us.
It kind of goes back to one of these agility principles around think big, start small, but learn fast. This kind of learn and fail fast opportunity with agility ways of working. So for us, it was starting with B Corp. External frameworks, advice, consultancy can sometimes help. Just to strategize around the bigger picture. But fundamentally, it's also around. Second point might be around awareness, upskill, change our understanding, our mindset around sustainability. Bringing in some subject matter expertise is really important. And so we're a big believer in top-down and bottom-up change within the organization. So not just having, the CEO or the manager or a chief sustainability officer driving this, but to engage your entire workforce in the process, give agency, some level of autonomy and empowerment to all of your staff to come up with the ideas. Those that are closer to the market, to sales, those that are closest to reporting and standards, administrative, have slightly different lenses. So taking a multidisciplinary approach and engaging your entire team around this can be quite energizing as well, right? When you've got your colleagues side by side and you're on a learning journey together, it's a safer journey to go through. So those might be my 3 things.
I learned a lot today. Thank you very much, Paul, for your insights and sharings.
This is Lazada Insider. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure you click follow and subscribe so you don't miss our latest insights and expert interviews. Thanks again for joining us. Until next time, take care.